Let's jump right into this. We're looking at something every single school district in the country has to navigate, but, it rarely gets talked about with total transparency. We're talking about how school athletics programs undergo these rigorous health checks for equity. Specifically, we're going to unpack the fascinating findings and the recommendations from the recent MSAD51 Title IX Athletic Program Review. If you've ever wondered how schools actually balance sports funding, field access, or, oh boy, booster club money, this explainer is going to be incredibly insightful. Okay, let's dive into this and outline the path we're taking today. We'll start with the Title IX standard, then move into how they conducted the program review, what the review actually found, the whole complication with booster clubs, and finally, the recommendations and next steps. Section 1. The Title IX Standard, setting the legal benchmark. So, at its core, Title IX, specifically the Education Amendments of 1972, is a federal law that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in literally all education programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance. Now, because MSAD#51, like pretty much most public school districts, receives federal funds, their interscholastic athletics are strictly bound by these rules. It's not just a nice guideline. It's the absolute baseline legal requirement for operating a school sports program. But here's where people often get tripped up, right? Title IX does not require identical treatment. Meaning, you don't have to have exact mirror image budgets down to the literal penny or the exact same number of games for every single sport. What it does require, though, is equivalent opportunities and equivalent benefits. Think of it kind of like a giant set of scales. If you compare the overall opportunities and benefits provided to boys' teams with those provided to the corresponding girls' teams, say, baseball versus softball, that overall experience absolutely has to balance out. Section 2. Conducting the program review, the investigation phase. Now, what's really interesting about this scope is the sheer depth the legal counsel went into. I mean, the attorneys didn't just look at a spreadsheet and call it a day. No way. They dug deep into the structural DNA of the high school's athletic programs. We're talking about examining policies, procedures, team rosters, coaches' contracts, stipends, even booster handbooks. They literally left no stone unturned to get a true, clear picture of the equity landscape. Just to give you an idea of how incredibly thorough this investigation was, the legal team literally toured all the athletic facilities themselves. They sat down and interviewed the district's Title IX coordinator, the athletic director, and 16 different coaches across boys and girls sports. And they offered all these different formats and times for these interviews just to make absolutely sure they captured a wide, representative range of voices. It was a highly data-driven, ground-level approach, which makes the findings we're about to look at super solid. Section 3. What the review found, the transparent truths. First up, the really good news. Overall access to sports at the high school is actually remarkably equitable. We're seeing 46% of girls and 53% of boys participating. This is a massive success, honestly, because it closely mirrors the high school student body's actual demographic split, which sits right around 50-50. It shows that, structurally speaking, the district is doing a fantastic job of getting kids onto the field and into the gym in the first place, supporting 29 different teams across the seasons. So the crucial point here is where those equivalent benefits actually fell short. The review identified some very specific, kind of glaring logistical disparities. For instance, the girls' ice hockey team didn't have a dedicated locker room at the family ice center like the boys did. And look, if you've ever smelled or had to lug around a heavy, sweaty hockey bag, you know that is no small inconvenience. Over in softball, the prep, maintenance, and access to permanent batting cages at the shared Twin Brook facility just weren't comparable to baseball. And fundamentally, a lack of centralized field and gym scheduling occasionally disadvantaged girls' programs like lacrosse, soccer, and basketball. These are real, tangible hurdles, They directly impact the student-athlete experience. Section 4. The Booster Club Complication, a Paradox of Success. This brings us to a direct insight from the presentation, and it really highlights what I call a paradox of success. You have these incredibly dedicated parents volunteering their weekends, raising money to support their kids' teams out of the total goodness of their hearts. But, and it's a big but, under federal law, if a booster club for a boys' team is just wildly successful at fundraising and there isn't an equivalent boost for the corresponding girls' team, well, that accidentally triggers a federal Title IX inequity. Basically, this means the district is legally responsible for ensuring the equitable application of all raised funds, regardless of which booster club actually raised them. Now, the school isn't saying no thank you to the boosters. They deeply, deeply appreciate the support. But it means the school's own budget is legally obligated to balance those scales. So if boosters are funding an assistant coach or specialized training for one team, the district has to ensure the corresponding program has comparable resources. And they often have to pull from the primary school budget to make it right. It is a huge financial and legal balancing act. Section 5. Recommendations and next steps. The resolution. And this brilliantly illustrates how seriously the district actually took this audit. They didn't even wait for the final report to drop before taking action. As soon as that scheduling issue was flagged, boom, they rolled out a new collaborative scheduling system for fall 2025 where all coaches sit down together. By spring 2026, coaches were receiving advanced budgets with strict administrative oversight. Looking ahead to the 2026-2027 school year, boys and girls ice hockey will now rotate the locker room at Family Ice. And in the fiscal year 27 proposed budget, the district actively added funds specifically for permanent batting cages and faster uniform replacements to close those equity gaps for good. Let's move to and see how this builds a stronger foundation moving forward, especially regarding those well-meaning booster clubs. The athletic director now meets with all booster leads twice a year, every year, just to maintain total transparency. They are establishing crystal clear guidelines on exactly what support is permissible. And, interestingly, the legal counsel even recommended the board consider creating a centralized all-sports booster organization. That way, they could standardize support across every single program evenly. So the work is actively underway. Because, let's be honest, equity isn't just a checkbox you mark once and then completely forget about. It requires constant, ongoing maintenance and oversight. To ensure accountability, the district has already scheduled a follow-up presentation to the board of directors for October 1st, 2026. That's going to allow them to review the specific improvements and make absolutely sure these recommendations are actually bearing fruit. Which brings us to you. Whether you're a parent, a student athlete, or just a community member who loves heading out to Friday night games, MSAD's 51's review gives us all a pretty powerful lens. It shows us that true equity goes way, way beyond just letting everyone play. It's about locker rooms, it's about batting cages, gym times, and yeah, even bake sales and booster budgets. So I'm going to leave you with this to think about. How is your local community ensuring true equity, both on and off the field? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and remember, keep asking the right questions.